Let's talk. Is there a delay in FSD? So this is very critical, right? For us, this is the most important thing that Elon has said. I'm, not exactly betting the company, but close to it, and he believes it's working. So, number one, 12.3.4 was supposed to come out last month, and it's been delayed, and that is a fact. That's a lot longer. Chuck Cook sent out a tweet and he says, I'm back from my trip. I have an update for all of you. The Tesla ADAS operators are out driving on my first day back. So perhaps this is validation of a new version, possibly 12.4.5. Elon replied to him, said, actually, it's 12.5. So in one way, while 12.4 has been delayed, they're already testing 12.5. And then Omar had tweeted and said, people just don't get it that Tesla, they haven't realized, even the bulls don't even realize that Tesla has solved autonomy already. It's very clear to me, right, that it's a done deal because, when your car can routinely handle 90 minutes in traffic with zero interventions, you see it. Elon replied to him and he said, the amount of testing time it takes to figure out if the new AI is better than the existing AI, as measured by miles between interventions, is a limiting factor in progress. The better FSD gets, the longer it takes to find interventions. So if you take what he said there, it sounds like that the reason why it's taking them longer to release the new versions is because it's taking them longer to find those interventions because FSD is really getting good. The interventions, the miles between interventions is so good. Do you guys believe that 12.4 is delayed? Well, that's a fact. It is delayed from what they said, but are we behind of what we all were expecting of the progress for full self-driving?
I think we'll always be behind what we're expecting. I think it's just the nature of the beast. I mean, I've been in software development for over 50 years. I've never known software development to deliver on time or deliver in advance, ahead of the time. It's always been late because it's almost impossible to fathom what you have to do. But I will say that, the product is getting really, really good. I can see the path is pretty clear. The question is what is the last how are the last improvements going to be baked in? None of us know this. And so everybody expecting Robotaxi to be around the corner, in October or in August, in October or even in January next year, that's just not feasible. But sometime in late 25, maybe mid 26, I think we'll be at a point where they could roll it out. That's what I believe for a long time, and I continue to believe it. And I think, with some setbacks, I think they're maintaining the kind of pace that I've anticipated they'll get to. So I'm pretty comfortable with where we are.
Yeah, if they're showing this, Cybercab, somewhere in this period of between August and October, then you've got to figure 10 to 12 months of, from industrial design lock, then they've got to go through and do their first prototypes, their functional tooled prototypes. They've got to do their engineering validation cycles. My program managers in the crowd will know what I'm talking about. And if you go through each of those cycles, and you could be at a cycle of 10 to 12 months from being ready for start of production SOP. So I think people just need to understand that unless Tesla's kept this thing under wraps and they're much further along than what they're saying, I don't envision Cybercab production until the middle part of the second half of next year, to be honest with you. So that would coincide with what Larry is saying, in terms of readiness on autonomy. So, I mean, in terms of FSD, it's really hard to say. I do not believe autonomy is solved. I think there are several use cases that Tesla, this is just about, I think they have the process to solve it, and they've ramped up the compute capability to solve it, and they've ramped up the approach to train these models. Like, they've done the super hard work. But I mean, my car still pulls up on my driveway and drives me off into my backyard. I just had a safety critical intervention today. I'm still on 12.3.6, So that's me. I'm one person. This needs to be, a year between interventions for 1 million drivers, or more. So there's just, to me, there's a lot more work to do. With that said, Tesla is probably a couple of versions, 2 or 3 versions ahead of anything that we're driving. And so if it's taking longer for interventions, then they should be able to model that and know what that is relative to the performance that they're going to be at each version. So if they think at 12.5 they're going to be this much time between interventions, then they should understand how much prototype validation time they're going to need as they advance the model, or they're going to have to accelerate their ability to find interventions through some sort of acceleration manner. They're have to do one of two things. But the point is, if it's taking longer, then they should be able to model how much longer and understand what level of performance capability. But they're miles ahead of anybody, and this is an approach that's going to be both volume scalable and economically scalable. And to me, that's an investment thesis for Tesla's approach to autonomy. That's what's important.
Okay. And Jeff, since you were just having that discussion, can you explain to people, well, where was I going with this? You know how, yes, am I losing it?
Brain fart.
Brain fart.
Well, let me jump in and ask you,
about the cyber
if we can go back to your idea on the timeline. We seem to have different expectations on you, because you kept using the phrase delayed, and I don't want to just belabor the language, but I was absolutely thrilled when, we assume that they're testing the next small version in front of Chuck's turn. And for Elon to say, no, we're working on 12.5 right there. I mean, that's unexpected for him to come out with that information there. He didn't have to do it. He clearly wanted to do it. I've been on, 12.4.3 here on 2 cars, and I don't have it on 1 car. So I think it's important to remember it's only out about 10% of the fleet. We're told that they're going slowly with rollouts to avoid the steps backwards that none of us want to see a major news headline. So I think that's a good thing. I definitely understand it's frustrating if you don't have it and you want it. I've been there. I'm there every other time. So I'm happy to report my experience. I know it's not everybody's. Is that 12.4 is much better in my use case scenario than 12.3 was. Help me understand, Herbert, what you thought the timeline was to say that this is delayed.
Yeah, I was actually pulling up. Lord Pretty Flacco has a fantastic document, and he's been tracking. And I just pulled it up, but I can't look at that document. Same time as looking at my X account. 12.4.3 was announced, or Elon was talking about 12.4 in April. And I think people were expecting that we were going to get to 12.5 and 12.6 in May and June. Lord Pretty Flacco, he had this kind of, he was saying, okay, this is when it was initially released to employees. And then this is when it actually rolled out to all of us. And then he would do that for every release. And then based on that cadence, he then said, well, based on that, we should be able to get 12.5 and 12.6 at these dates, 12.4 specifically. And I think most of us had assumed that by this point, we would have already gone 12.5.
Right. So that's the misconception, I believe. I mean, Elon has described these. He says these could easily be not just 12.3 to 12.4, but it could be 12, 13, 14. And so, when I really believed him when he said it's major retraining involved and moving in leaps and bounds, even though sometimes on the street, we've been driving this for years. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it. Elon says, "Oh, this is a game changer. It's mind blower," and then we get it and we feel like, "Oh, well, I guess it's a little better." But the overall picture is, I think, huge changes coming faster and faster. And so I didn't expect to be this summer. I almost wish Elon would name them differently. I mean, he's in charge, right? I don't know who he's referring to when he says, well, we could. Well, then do it.
Yeah, but guys, to use a tracking tool to look at past performance of releases, software releases, is about as fallacious as you can get. Sometimes the smallest change can take an extremely long period of time, and some very large changes can take a very short period of time. It's unpredictable because you don't understand what you don't know before you actually start testing it and start rolling it out, particularly in the kind of stack they've got right now. And 12.5 is a massive change because it means changing, the entire highway stack. So you can expect to see a significant amount of problems with that release, and it's going to take longer. That release is going to take longer to get the following release out. So these things are not predictable, but I see a very clear path forward. I've been seeing it for some time, and it's going at roughly the rhythm that I expected it to go at, which is slower than everybody else has been, predicting. I really think we should, hold our horses a little bit and just let the team do their thing, and let's be a little patient. Anyway, guys, I got to drop off. Anyway, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Herbert.
Thank you so much, Larry. Appreciate you. Lincoln. Yep.
Hey, Herbert.
Yeah. Do you know what the word fallacious means?
Did you say fallacious?
Yeah.
I do.
Larry used it.
Salacious.
I only heard every other word of his though, because he's has a horrible connection. But anyways, I wanted to say, if these new versions are taking so long to test out because to find interventions, then if we're having much less interventions than the previous ones, why can't they just release it to us earlier and test it out? Like, if it's less interventions and they need to find them, then
that's a good point, right? Wouldn't they want more users so that they can find more, right? More data.
Hi, Lincoln.
Correct.
Hi, buddy. Hope you're doing well today. What makes you think that it's going slowly? What is this perception? It seems like bam, bam, bam. We got all of these back to back, and then we're going up levels at a time. Why is it that you feel like this is slow?
So Herbert had said the delay. I guess I don't know if you interpreted that, Herbert, from the
Oh man, I'm getting
Elon's
hammered here
post.
today. I'm just saying things that I think that the general public, the general Tesla investors believe because of what the general conversation has been, that it was expected that 12.5 was going to come sooner than it is now. Am I wrong? But that's what I heard.
Herbert's a shock jock. He's putting these fallacious comments out.
Herbert Stern.
Oh no! Come on.
Ooh, I like it.
This is funny. You're making good points.
You know what?
Landon.
I mean,
I appreciate your points. It's true, but
in all honesty, in product development world, we're completely in the dark. I know the document you're referring to, where it said 12.5 in June, 12.4 in May, 12.5 June, and so forth. But those are just labels for software releases.
So I got to interrupt. Sorry, Landon. I just realized Elon himself said these dates.
I know.
So it's not
okay.
I know.
That's what I was.
I know he did. That's fine. That's fine. But what I'm saying is as users, we are almost all we have is our own personal experience that we have with a release, like what Landon was describing. We're completely in the dark. Tesla could label any release they want, whatever label they want to give it. The question is what does the end state, what does full autonomy end state look like? And what level of performance, how many interventions per mile per year are needed? What is that? Can you simulate it in a lab? Can you accelerate it and understand it? But between here and there, Tesla can label they could give us 12.5 tomorrow. I don't know if I can't tell the difference between 12.36, 12.3, 12.2. I can't tell the difference, to be honest with you, in my limited driving. I don't know. It's very difficult.
Well, Jeff,
there's certain things
it changes. It seems like my car will be different on the same version, right? So it's really hard to tell. Like, are they doing background?
Yes, I'm saying we're completely in the dark. We do not have the stats, the dashboard that Tesla has from the entire fleet. They see the data, they see their unit test data, they see their system, their internal system test data, they see their employee test data. They see all this stuff. They can aggregate it. They have the ability to aggregate data. We don't have that. So it's not. It's just a statement of fact. I mean, these conversations are interesting to me, but unless there's new functionality being added to the release, like summon or banish or things like you notice, we say, hey, this wasn't there before, and now it is. Those are the things we can notice as users. But man, to say like, it's really hard to just compare these things. I mean, you can, but I think if as you drive them over time, I think all of the experiences will blend until they make a gigantic leap in performance.
Yeah, two things. Elon time, was that canceled? I don't understand why anyone's talking about 12.5 coming in June. Like that's just
Okay. Yeah.
But
So this is May 14th, 2 months ago. He said, by the way, 12.4 goes internal release this weekend and limited external beta next week, roughly 5 to 10 times improvement in miles per intervention versus 12.3. 12.5 will be out in late June. We'll also see a major improvement in the MPI and a single stack, no more implicit stack on highways. This was 2 months ago. So yeah, I know, Elon time, but I again,
Turning
maybe
the
wrong.
impossible into late, merely
yeah,
late.
exactly.
No, I know, I get it, but I mean, it's like
But
it's more like when it's a massive goal and you are talking about something that might happen in a year. That's Elon time. But if something's going to say, I'm going to make, I think it's going to come out in 2 months from now. Okay, I mean, there's Elon time. I guess so.
Yeah, but Herbert, there's also like you have Jeff was just saying that if there's a new feature or something that's unique to a version, and I remember Elon saying that .4, .5, .6, they're all completely different, and they are, right? Not having a nag, my mind was blown. Is it perfect? No. My wife comes home, oh, I don't like it. I had my sunglasses, blah blah blah. But the point is, this is a step in the right direction for me. So I think it's going to take however long it takes, and
Yeah.
there
Well,
are
let's talk
improvements.
about how long it will take, because you're right. There's way too much going on in 12.5 to say that it's going to be right around the corner. Just knowing what we know, owning it, living it, driving it every day. And so we've got to get the Cybertruck stack. We've got to get the highway stack integrated. And then we got confirmation from Tesla, it appears. Well, maybe I should walk that back just slightly. We got a rumor that the cars are going to have car to car and car to headquarters reporting for police, potholes, and accidents kind of thing. So if you just take those three things, I mean, that's like 3 of the biggest possible FSD releases that we've ever seen. So I don't understand why they would all be in 12.5. And if they are, that's going to be the mother of all holiday releases here in December, in my opinion.
Yeah, go ahead, Seth. Whoa, that we need to
Yeah.
give a few seconds here because it was pretty epic. I like it. Okay, go ahead, Seth.
I think progress is. I think it's really difficult when you're coming from the outside. I'm an artist, so like one thing I know about progress is that you don't see the progress a lot of times. And this ever since V12 have come out, it's significantly better, which means that you're at a higher level, which means that in order to go to the next level, it's going to take even longer. So the past indication could be some kind of ballpark understanding. Elon, I always take Elon's stuff as Elon time, because he's looking at it. Okay, it took us maybe a couple weeks to this version, and if you do deduce that at that point to the next 5 weeks or whatever, then we should be able to release at this point. And he has very aggressive deadlines. We know that historically, to push the team. So when they're going 3 weeks in, maybe they find something that doesn't work. So like, okay, this version, this version, this version. Okay, it doesn't work. We thought it's gonna work. It's not. We're gonna go scrap it, go to the other ones. And then you have to choose between the ones that you tested, which ones you have to implement it into the version to the public side. And if like, Chuck says, oh, they're on his road looking at it. Well, the unprotected left turns, great. Maybe they worked on it and they actually did make progress, and maybe they did push it out. But in LA, I don't have anything close to that kind of UPLs. I don't. It's not that far out. It's not. I don't have anything crazy like that. Maybe they worked on a roundabout. There is none in LA that I go around with. So maybe they did a version, and I see absolutely no change in my stack because I don't actually use that very specific update that they worked on, the edge cases and so forth, and they have many different versions. So the longer it takes, it's because they're not sure which one to implement first, so they have to figure out which one to do. So the process in which you're doing it is completely different from the previous one. So you can't do this from like step one, step two, because you're at a higher level now and you're doing these edge cases or certain tasks that you may not be coming across, which was like Jeff said, he doesn't see a different version, like anything different with the different versions. That's absolutely true with my time too, right? There's a 2 or 3 versions. I don't see anything different. I still have mostly one intervention or less, right? But I don't do those crazy like stuff that some of the other edge cases that may be regularly available needed for the other places in the country. So I think progress is very much happening. It's just not happening maybe in your place or your area, or maybe you don't see it because you don't use that feature that they're working on. And I think the progress is always going to be crazy because they're working on like a bazillion different versions. They also have to choose which one. And sometimes you see a regress at certain parts that you thought was they already got it because they're working on something else. Maybe it affected it. And we don't know how it affects in the software. So I think progress is always there, and I think they're making bigger leaps. It's just harder to put it on the public release because you have to make that decision out of a million different smaller details now. So I think that's why Elon had to reiterate that part. It's harder to get to the next level. And so I think we're kind of getting impatient because we're like, oh, we're so close, but we have to be a little more patient about that progress.
Thank you, Sat. Okay, let's welcome up Andre.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I kind of wanted to add some thoughts to it. So there's kind of two parts to development here, right? So obviously you guys talked about the features and then the training. Now, some of the features, they modify how the neural net behaves, right? So either they add more input for the fleet, or there's more now requirements, more actions that have to be taken, right, from sudden to parking and everything. And when you do that, now you got to retrain the neural net, and we all know that. The nuance is that if you get an intervention and you take just that in an isolated environment, by just training the neural net, you do slightly degrade everything else that has been previously trained on it. It's so tiny, minimal, but maybe some other intervention will pop up and so forth. But I don't think that's the biggest kind of right now what they're focused on. The biggest, I think, is the fact that they're constantly changing neural net, and then they got the 5 times increase that Elon hinted at when he said that hardware 3 is capable of a 5 times bigger neural net, or the way he said it, it was like, that's stretching its limits. So as soon as that comes in, as soon as fleet comes in, and these are major changes and advancement, after that there'll be a burn down to, I believe, very, not only a very quick burn down, but a known burn down to a certain level of miles per intervention. And quick, obviously, I mean like months, or like probably 6 months or more, but it'll be very, very clear at that point. So I think we'll have 12.5. I suspect we'll have a 12.6 unless they're putting in the 5 times increase into 12.5. So maybe 12.6, or they'll call it 12.7 to do the burn down. But yeah, these are major, major kind of improvements. So, but honestly, from the observations, I'm not sure why 12.4 was not kind of given out to the public, to be honest.
Anybody have thoughts on that? Why? I think Landon, you said it's 10%. My understanding was 1 or 2%. Several about a week ago. So is that known that it's around 10% distributed at this point?
I think that's what Tesla has as their statistic, and of course I don't know either. But and I've got close friends that say this is much worse for them in their area than 12.3. And for me, it's much better. So, we get back to these old questions. Are they doing A/B testing? Is it just different variations of roads and weather and everything else around the country? It's probably all of those things. But I don't know why. I think this of sitting here on through It's like, where is this? It's so good, I won't use it on all of them, but they are, like Jeff says, they see so much more than what we even couldn't think we're grasping here.
Remember the time that they took away the FSD from everyone? They sent out an update and they like literally took it away from everyone. Like
10.3.
yeah, so like maybe they released the 12.4 to make 10 whatever plus or whatever percentage, and then they see certain issues with it, and like, oh, we probably shouldn't go further out with it. We'll just stick to this, and then work on it, and then give a bit wider release with the version later, right? So like you don't know what's happening in the back information. Like if you know other people are significantly worse, maybe that's part of the reason why they don't want to, right? But in your area, it's not affected. Like mine has always been great for the most part, right? My Tesla service has always been really great too, right? So like it's very biased to certain areas and certain ways of using the road. So that's why I think like you don't know what's happening in the back end until you actually talk to someone there, which they won't talk to you about. So I think that I think we kind of get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I actually have 12.4.3, had it early, luckily this time, and I was blown away by it. It's not only that it didn't have interventions, but the way it drove was something that the way I describe it to people is that I'm no longer embarrassed if there's somebody right behind me, because it left and take off from a park situation much faster. It knows how to drive fast when it needs to drive fast. It knows how to drive slow when it needs to do it. Much human-like, or much more like how I drive. So I thought it was, I was very impressed with it. Have been impressed with it recently. So I know that that's actually the complaint that many people are saying that they're seeing with it, which is the opposite of my own experience. So that is very interesting.
I like Sat's description there, and I think that is one of the scenarios. We haven't seen him actually pull it back, where 10.3 had this massive phantom braking on freeways, and people were really in kind of a bad situation there. But what I'm thinking is that it's the Chuck Cook 12.5 comment from Elon that typically this is exactly what we'd see. Is like Sat says, if there's some issues, they stop the rollout, they put a pause on it, and then they send out the drivers and the teams again to do the ADAS testing. And so specifically for Elon to say, no, they're not out there testing 12.4.5, wherever we are, and they're testing 12.5. And so that's fantastic. And I think that's the difference. I don't think that means we're all getting 12.5 this week, though. I think it's 3 weeks out.
Yeah. Okay. Any more conversation we want to have on the Robotaxi event and the progress of full self driving? This is the most important event that's coming up. I know, Jeff, you keep saying that it's actually a negative, or you can't just say it's a positive that it was delayed. Agreed. But at the end of the day, it's everything we're seeing is still very bullish. From the 12.5 release, the comments that he wants to improve it, and then maybe be able to show off a few things. So what I'm saying is that what he just said, what he just confirmed over the weekend, is that this event was not canceled. In fact, what they're doing is trying to make it better, and that it was worthwhile delaying it. They could have delayed it because they couldn't get the team to do what he wanted them to do by that point. That's not the way it was positioned. They're delaying it because they want new things added that he thought was important design changes. So go ahead, Xander.
Yeah, Andre and Sat raised their hand, so maybe we'll go to them. But I wanted to clarify one of the things that you just said, and that was a question I had written down: is what are they going to show us with this additional time? Is that what you guys were going to speculate on, Andre and Sat? And if not, just go on to your point.
No, I was gonna just build on Herbert's point is that, and Jeff was saying, delays aren't good for anybody, right? Like you have a plan and you're delaying it, so obviously something has to be fixed, which means that it's not the most positive thing. But I take it as a positive thing because it means that they're working on it. Because I don't know if everyone noticed, GM CEO just said they're not gonna meet the 1 million, production deliveries for 2025. So she's announcing this a year in advance, a year and a half advance, that they're not gonna make it. right? So you have all these other CEOs saying they're going to do something. A few years later, they're like, "Oh, oops, we're not going to do it." Right? So like Elon's like, "No, we're just delayed right now. We're gonna do it. We're just delayed. We're working on it." So he's actually reinforcing that he's working on it, whereas the other CEOs literally just don't say anything, and then one day they're like, "Oh yeah, we're not doing it." So I don't see that as negative when the CEO's like, "Hey, we're working on it. Yeah, we got to fix something or whatever it is," right? Like I find that to be more positive because he's actually being transparent at the process.
Yeah, no, the GM announcement was even worse. They're not. They're saying they're not committing to put 1 million units of capacity in place. So they've already said we're not going to sell that many, obviously, but their announcement was they're not going to install the capacity for it. So they're like, it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be, even if the demand was there, they could not produce it. They're putting themselves in that position. But no, I mean, when you're late, when you put a date out for the world and you don't hit it, it's not a good thing. I mean, we can try to whatever, but in general, like I said, the way I look at it is if you're looking back on this date 2 years from now, it's not going to matter. That I think to me, that's the macro point. To try to say that it's better that it's 2 months later, well, yeah, they should have more shit done 2 months later, right? It's not, that's the way Tesla works. So I'm not surprised with that. It just, why couldn't they show us anything in August? To me, is a question. But like I said, we're going to look back on this 2 years. We're not going to remember that it moved out a couple months.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I want to kind of mention one thing that I was thinking about this event, and I want to mention it with a bit of preface. I'm not suggesting
it's Andre, right?
Huh?
You said Andrew.
Andre.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Isn't his name Andre?
Andre, yeah.
Oh, I thought I heard Andrew.
Oh, no.
I wouldn't answer to Andrew if my name was Andre.
Oh, yeah. Either way is fine. The one
Andre,
thing.
are you speaking? If you are, I can't
He's
hear
speaking. Jeff. Okay, so you can't hear him? Okay, go
Do you
ahead.
want me to drop down, come back up?
No. I think I can hear you, so sorry, Jeff. Go ahead, Andre. Just keep going.
So the number's 88. That has luck significance for China, right? And there was a lot of activity when it was announced around the BYD testing FSD, and there's like hints that FSD is about to be licensed, and all of a sudden that kind of quieted down, and now no longer 88. I don't want to speculate or suggest anything, but it does seem that if there is no more pressing matter for why we must do it 8A or something got delayed there, then might as well, like, hey, it's all about the product, right? It's not about making the events, it's about delivering a fantastic product. So I wanted to kind of bring that up, but without actually causing like speculation or what's up with the cancellation of any involvement in China and so forth, but
Well, I like the statement that you had there at the end, but I do think that there is continued good news in China. We at the end of last week, there's now 10 FSD cars that have licenses in China to do testing, and that's new information. So that's excellent progress. If you want my take on the 8.8 and that importance, I think it was rushed. It was a little bit off the cuff from Elon. We see that time and again. I don't begrudge him that. He's working his teams the best way he feels that he can. And, if he just throws out something about 8.8 and then later changes it, like Jeff said, I don't care. It's not the end of the world to me. It doesn't mean anything to me. But, maybe we just don't know why the 8.8 came out in the first place.
And the way he positioned it was, he's going, okay, I want to do, I'm ready to go all in, right? All in on Robotaxi. And he started to make massive changes, wartime CEO, to the company to make this decision. He saw something. He knew that we're headed in that direction. Then he said, 8.8, what a great date, August. It's great for China. It will, success. But it's also the birth date of his triplets. So he thought, okay, let's shoot for that date. That's what happened. I don't think it was, in fact, if anything, that date, because of this, how gorgeous how wonderful the 8.8 looks, maybe he decided that he did it earlier than expected.
Well, you brought new information to the table here. You heard it here first. Breaking news. Now it's obvious to the rest of us, Herbert. It's Siobhan says, excuse me, we got a birthday party that day.
That's it. That's exactly right. No. Yeah, so I'm not not that concerned that he had to move the 8.8 part, right? But like I said, we are all thinking that the reason is because they didn't get things done in time, and that's why they're moving it. That's not what it sounded like from everything we're hearing at this point. It's the opposite of that.
I want you guys to all remember this very moment when we see them bring the Cybercab out. I want you to all look very closely at the front end, and if that thing is not extremely unique and the best front end we've ever seen, then we're going to have questions.
I don't know what we're talking about. You miss a date, you missed a date. It's not. We shouldn't be like celebrating. Like I don't get it. But we're arriving at the same conclusion, which is it's not going to matter in even the medium term. It's not going to matter. But like to say like, this is actually like better. I don't know.
Definitely not. I've got my tongue in my cheek, and I think that it was silly to announce 8.8. I think that it was kind of a knee-jerk response at the time, and I think to delay or to move is really not anybody's business. It's leaked, and they're not where they want to be. It's certainly not a positive. That for Elon to say that it's because he's changing the front end, I'm calling him on that and saying that's not exactly why this is happening.
Well,
Are you speaking, Sat? Can't hear you.
yeah, ideally,
go.
I mean, I agree. It's like delays aren't great, and I think if it's the ideal way, he would probably consult the engineers who's working on it first, and then take a ballpark estimate up from there. But I don't think it works that way. He puts it out there first and reverses it, and then it's like every time it happens, right? Every time it's a little bit delayed or it's whatnot, right? So I think I've just kind of gotten immune to it. At least I know that's an indication that they're working on it. That's how I started looking at it.
Well, do we want to play the game of that second sentence that he said, which is it allows us to show off a couple more things? What do you guys think that is? No one has guesses? Yeah, go ahead.
Robotaxi rides to the conference.
I mean, they may have. I mean, it could be a number of things. It could be
anything.
Functionality. It could be something related to the ride-hailing app. It could be the next vehicles. I mean, it could be a number of things that would coincide with a later date. But I do agree with you that the event is centered around the company's Robotaxi effort. But it's Tesla. They're not like masters of these events. Like there's not a, it's not managed in a way. It's almost like the scripts are written, by the engineers and which is fine. It's not like this thing is going to be some beautifully crafted like Martin Scorsese directed event. It's going to be pulled together. So yeah, it could be a number of things. But yeah, I'm not buying. Like if they had a physical change to make to the car, I don't know why they wouldn't like quick turn. Make those changes, machine the parts. They've got a paint shop, they've got a machine shop, they've got a tooling shop, they've got everything, on premises. So to me, you can go a number of different areas, but I think I also think like the whole system has to work perfectly. Like to me, success for that event is Elon reaches into his jacket pocket, pulls his phone out, opens the Tesla app, and in one button summons the Cybercab. The Cybercab appears.
Jeff.
Now, yeah.
I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I'm just saying that there could be some sort of mechanical parts. There could be something that's not eatably and reliably working. Like think like the Model X doors, for example. I don't know if these things have scissor doors. I don't know if there's something related to ingress and egress. If there's something where there's some dependency where it's not working 100 out of 100 times. I don't know if that's the case. So yeah, I mean, we're just wildly speculating the fact that it's a few months. I'm not.
I got a speculation. What if Elon goes, we want to make this thing unidirectional. There's no, if that's the right term. I don't know. If there's no controls and maybe people are faced inwards and you want to be able to add rear steering to the front of the car, making it front wheel steering, but it's like extreme, like it's rear wheel steering or so. That's what I picture as it has to be something extreme that engineers need 2 months to implement.
So there's, I want to respond to that because immediately I just can't understand what. Initially, that's what I thought it was going to be, right? It should be exactly what you said. There's no front or end back, but Franz has been designing this closely with Elon for years. This is not going to be, oh, I decide I'm going to make a different choice. Okay, that it had a front, didn't want to change it. And second point is in his tweet, he said, I want to make a change to the front. So there is a front and there is a back. So you just said it's very highly unlikely. If anything, it's not a design. I've been saying it's not likely a design change. It's more likely a feature function that you wanted to add. Go ahead, Andre.
Actually, I said it as kind of a small joke, but I think it would be super cool if they can actually do some Robotaxi shuttling from parking lot to the convention center door or something, just with a few cars, because that's fully feasible, right? It should be very easy to train them specifically on that if it needed. Regulatory approval is simple, and yeah, if you can get a couple prototypes, all of a sudden this is doable.
Actually, we don't know yet where it's going to be, and I think most of us thought it was going to be in Austin, but it could be LA. It could be other places. What were you guys thinking where it might be?
I think that they've got the biggest facility, the newest facility, the headquarters in Austin now, and I think that's where they would default to these. And I know we've had some robotics and AI meetings in California and smaller venues, but Giga Texas, it sure seems like Elon is all in for Texas, so that's where I would expect.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually, especially what's happened today, where Elon just announced that both X and SpaceX are moving their headquarters to Austin. It does, huh? That made me wonder if they decided to change the Robotaxi event location. Huh? Nah, timing wise. Okay, go ahead. Hey, Crunch, how you doing? Come on up.
Mic check.
Yep, sounds great.
When Elon mentioned that 8.8 would be some new things to announce, what I thought of is inter-car real-time communications, because I've always thought of that as being a prerequisite for robotaxis. Any thoughts on that? Thanks.
This sounds like this is a feature that, right, Jeff, that they're talking about releasing in 12.5 to where people can send information. So is that, I don't know if that's exactly the same as car-to-car communication, car-to-car, because this is not a quick communication, right? This is not anything that would be emergency or system critical because you're going over cellular.
Yeah, it's more part of the network, and then the network updates the fleet. So yeah, if there's any construction or anything like that, and that's something they'll evolve. They may release something in 12.5, and then they'll evolve, and maybe over time, they'll continue to add modules to that. But yeah, the ability for the car to, real time update, the network, and then the network to update everyone else would definitely put Tesla everybody that's kind of dependent on like crusty old maps and LiDAR. So yeah, I think it's a good plan. I don't know if they're delaying the event for that, but I think it's imminent. So yeah, I think there could be a couple of surprises for the event. But the one thing is, I think Grok integration has got to happen. It's got to be a cornerstone of the Cybercab at some point, because you're going to get into this thing and there shouldn't be really any control. So it's more of like, it should ask you a question and it should be able to process a response and have a conversation, be able to provide information in multiple languages and understand multiple languages. So I think that's got to be on the development path for Cybercab. I don't know if they need it for the event per se, but you know, I think that's coming. So yeah, Tesla's never done. Like your Model X that you buy today is still getting updates and hardware changes, and they removed ultrasonics. They do. Tesla's like never done. But I mean, I think like there's kind of a critical to have list for Cybercab, and definitely the vehicle being able to update to the network and the network back is one of those things. And then this level of performance with interventions obviously is another thing. So, yeah.
Okay, so we have Warren here, Warren Redlick. Elon was the one replied to your post, and he was explaining why they delayed the 8.8. But you did a video, and you're saying that somebody had, I guess you have inside knowledge of an engineer telling you of the reason why. Do you want to explain a little bit more for us?
I didn't get that much detail. It was just, well, first of all, I want to address Crunch's question. Just before we go there, this is a popular question people ask about FSD. Does it need to have car-to-car communication in order for the cars to be able to drive? And it's like, well, we don't have that, and we're human. Human drivers don't have that feature. So, and the thing I think Landon may have been talking about, if a car is driving down the road and it realizes the road is blocked and that's not on the map, the car will upload not to the next car over, but to the cloud. Hey, update the maps for everybody. This section's blocked. We don't want a whole bunch of cars, jamming up here. But the idea that two cars need to be able to communicate to each other directly, hey, I'm turning, don't, let me through. Humans don't have that feature. So I think they may eventually add that feature, but it's not mission critical, because just like, humans don't drive with LiDAR and sonar, um, the cars don't need to drive with LiDAR and sonar, and they don't need to be able to communicate with each other directly. So what happened, and I explained this in the video, is after the Bloomberg story, and after the story got more attention than I think it should have, um, some people reached out to me, and partly it was direct communication from people saying, hey, here's what happened, and partly it was hearing other people saying, hey, I heard this was happening. A lot of things were consistent. Basically, there was an engineering meeting, and at the engineering meeting, and I wanted to preface this, and I said this in my video, by saying um, the engineers are really excited about the car. I remember this from Cyber Rodeo, talking to Tesla engineers, just like I was talking to some battery engineer. I talked to a few different, I remember one particular conversation, but I know I talked with a few Tesla engineers as I walked around the factory. And Landon, I think you were there too. That the engineers were really excited about Cybertruck. They knew a lot more about the engineering of Cybertruck than we did, and they were really excited about it. And I think Tesla delivered a really exciting vehicle. And with Cybercab, I don't think it's this is going to be 0 to 60 in 9/10 of a second, and Nürburgring performance. I think there are other goals with Cybercab, but the engineers are really excited about what they're doing. The engineering work is, it's in the words Elon would use, this is next level stuff, and alien technology or whatever, and they're really excited about it. And this was before the meeting that people were really excited about what they're doing. And then at the meeting, they're, close to wrapping up. All right, what are we doing with the vehicle? And Elon said, hey, I think we should do this with the front end. And it was one of those things where, if you've ever seen Gwynne Shotwell talk about, having an engineering meeting with Elon, and Elon says, well, what about this? Sometimes your initial reaction in your head is, well, that's not going to work. And, she says you have to pause and you have to, like, wait a minute. All right, can we do that? And you really have to, you don't just say no. You have to, Elon doesn't like just saying no. You have to, like, really take a step. And so that it was one of those moments where the team was like, what? And then people had to sit and think about it and pause. And the story from Bloomberg was there was a 2-month delay. And as if, like, everyone agreed there was a 2-month delay. And what I heard from two different sources was one of the lead engineers said, that's going to take us 2 months to do that. And Elon's response wasn't, fine, we'll delay 2 months. Elon's response was, get it done as fast as you can. Right. And if you know the world of Elon, if you know the world of how these engineering things happens, people say, like, we need to, do this with this data center that X is running on, and all that's going to take 6 months. And they go up there and they fix it in a weekend. Right. So I don't think the 2-month delay is necessarily true. It's now apparent because Elon responded to me that there's some delay. But just that there's that moment where the engineering team was like it's a really significant change. Elon said that is like a big deal. And what I heard, from the engineering side was, wow, this is really going to make the vehicle a lot better. And it's already really good. I don't have the detail of, like, well, they're, you know, making the front look like the back, or they're, using stainless steel in this spot. I don't have that engineering level of engineering detail. It was just one of those moments where a really big thing, and that's what I said in my video. And then Elon sort of, people said he confirmed what, my video when he responded. I was like, I thought he was correcting me, but rather than confirming. But he basically affirmed that yes, that the meeting did happen. And yes, there's a substantial change to the front end. And the thing that I thought was really exciting about what he said was, it gives us time to be able to show off a few other things. I was like, well, that sounds like Roadster and a more affordable model and who knows what else. I don't know what the few other things are, but that's the part I'm excited about.
Okay.
That's great detail from Warren there. Warren, good to hear your voice, buddy. You've been out of the country for a long time. We got to get you back occasionally, don't we? Will you come show off your new bride at some point?
The plan is, it turns out, if you don't mind me getting personal for a second, I proposed, right now we're working on the paperwork process of getting married. So I have to make an appointment with the U.S. Embassy to get a document. Then I have to get the documents translated. Then we actually went to the office where we would get the government, the government would say, okay, you're married, just to get the documents that tell us what we need to bring to be able to make that happen. Once we're married, then it's like, okay, now for a Thai person to visit the United States, they need a visa. And, once we're married, it's like, okay, we want a visa as a spouse. Well, then the United States government, sometimes the United States government is suspicious of immigration. So you have to be able to support it's a legit marriage and all this other stuff. So there's going to be some hoops to jump through, but I think before the end of this year, and my hope is that it all lines up to, we arrive in the country as my Cybertruck non-foundation series is ready to be delivered. And then we road trip for 3 to 4 weeks,
That's going
and
to be
then
yeah.
we road trip the United States for 3 to 4 weeks, and then figure out what I'm doing with the vehicle after, and then we come back to Thailand and continue nomading around Asia.
Yeah.
Go ahead and throw a Starship launch in there while you're in town.
Oh, hell yes. Oh, no. There's definitely a stop at Cape Canaveral, and there's definitely a stop at Starbase.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring up Starship for a reason, Herbert. They've put out this new photo that shows how they moved the fins on the thing, which seems like, if we're talking about a major front end redesign, I was shocked to see how different. I mean, here Starship is almost flight proven. And here there's this major change. So maybe Elon just got confused and thought he was talking about Starship when he was talking about the front end changes.
Oh, I appreciate that. And congratulations, Warren. So just getting back to the conversation you had and the video you did and Elon's response, right? I do have to kind of ask this question. So forgive me, I'm not trying to be an ass or anything, okay? But people are wondering, why would engineers leak information? Now, they did it to Bloomberg, and then now it sounds like they did it to you. And then how do you know for sure that what you're hearing is valid? You just did your own video attacking, well, countering other people who had just said things, and you're saying, hey, why would you say something that's not been, directly from Elon's? Can you just address that?
Sure. So for starters, the leak, however Dana Hull got her story, if you read her story, and I'll say this because I had a direct conversation with one of the people that I criticized, who among other, we have a disagreement, right? They think I'm wrong, I think they're wrong. Okay. And my attitude is, if you are a Tesla content creator and you are supportive of the company, you don't want to encourage leaks and you don't want to reward anti-Elon journalists for writing hit pieces on Elon by spreading their bullshit story uncritically. Okay. And that's a critical detail here, uncritically. It's one thing to say, hey, these assholes wrote a negative story about Elon. Here's what they got wrong. It's another thing to say, hey, Elon, Bloomberg says you fucked up. Is that true? Right? Okay. So to me, which is what I think that the other two people that are involved did, and I think a lot of people did that, and like tag Elon. Hey, Elon, is this true? Like, why are you so that I don't know why anybody leaked anything. I think Dana Hull, there's 100,000 people at Tesla. And something like 100,000 employees at Tesla. You're going to have some disgruntled employees. You're going to have some people with an agenda, right? It's just going to happen. It's just the way things are. I think the reason that the people I heard from were revealing a little bit more information is they were pissed off at the negative spin of the story. The Bloomberg story had a negative spin, and they were like really excited about what happened. It's not like Dana Hull said, wow, because if you read the Bloomberg article, it's not like Elon said, hey, I've got, that she didn't say the engineer's really excited about how cool the vehicle was. And Elon proposed this change, and everybody's like, wow, that's going to make it a lot better. That's not the story that Bloomberg told. Right. And so I think the engineers who followed on that wanted to say, why did this come off as a bad thing? Right. That I think is a key distinction. But I want to stress that I think, I think I criticized you for this too, Herbert. Don't spread don't when Elon hating journalists write attack pieces on Elon, don't spread them uncritically. Don't, and I think you did a post recently where you summarized the hit. I don't remember the specific post, so I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong. But it's like, no, like you have deep understanding of Tesla. If you're going to share this story, then read it, use your knowledge of the company to say, okay, does this really make sense? What doesn't fit here? What's really likely going on? Is this journalist an anti-Elon journalist? And you want to say that up front. Confirm that we don't know this is true right at the beginning. When I did my video, I said, hey, I don't have a high degree of reliability in my sources. I think I had a higher degree of reliability than Dana Hull had. That's a long conversation. Why? In particular, I had consistent, there were some key points of consistency that came across multiple sources. Um, but I think that it's one of those things that you have a platform, you've got a lot of followers, and I think you have a responsibility. Well, I shouldn't say that. I feel that I have a responsibility that if I'm going to share something like that, I need to give my own input on what I think is true and what I think is not true. And I think it's important not to reward, and it's important not to reward Elon haters for bashing Elon and for, you know, pulling, like, whatever company you're invested in. I'll ask Jeff this, like, whatever company you're invested in, do you think it's good that there are leaks? Do you want to reward them? Do you want to encourage them? I think the answer is no, we don't want to reward that. We don't want to encourage them. Is that a good general principle of an investor in a company, Jeff, that you don't want leaks?
Yeah, and from being an executive in a couple of these, we did not like it when the leaks occurred. We looked for the leakers, we fire them, and and then we encourage people not to do it. Like, hey, the company's growing massively. Do you want to be part of this? You want to be part of this, then don't leak. I also think I'm in a little bit of a disagreement here, though. I don't think we should be taking more leaked information to counteract another leak. I think it's okay to be critical, and I think it's appropriate that you're critical of the Bloomberg leak and like, well, what is this? What could it be? Could they're probably making the vehicle better. Like, that's all relevant to me. I think that's what people look to us for. But I would not, if an employee contacted me, I would not be sharing that information. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, Warren, so I mean, your point is correct. I agree with you what you were saying at the beginning, right? So we should not be rewarding Bloomberg and other news articles that are reporting leaks. But then your point about what you did, which is you actually shared information that was leaked to you, that if that employee wanted to counter a negative leak, it should have gone through corporate. It should have been done that way. I doubt very much that Elon actually watched your video, because if he did and he said, oh, this came from a leaked person leaking, he's not going to reward you for that. In fact, he's going to go harsh on that. He's been very clear about not liking leakers at all, regardless if it's positive or negative. You don't share anything you're not allowed to share.
Well, I'll ask you this, Jeff. Do companies leak information deliberately?
Yes, but they do it. They do it to the press. They do it to yeah, it happens. But you don't know. I mean, if you're not getting authorized from the top, then my advice would be to leave it. But yeah, companies do leak. By the way, companies also, like, I don't say the word lie, but kind of like obfuscate the reasons for delays. I was normally the butt of many reasons for a delay. I always want to blame it on supply chain of, supply chain issues, this, that. In reality, there was a time that the part that needed to be released and it wasn't released. And, we're just fighting the laws of physics to get the product scaled in production. But no company wants to come out and say that we're bad at engineering schedules and we're bad at, getting our product done on time. They just want to say, like, the supply chain is tough and we're working through it. So, but yeah, I keep going back to, like, the highest order bit with this, August event versus whatever month it is if it's just a couple of months, it's not going to mean anything in the grant. Even if you're a medium term, like 18-month kind of like investor, it's not going to mean anything. And yes, the product should be better. Every couple of months, they should be adding functionality and improving the product. So I wouldn't be surprised that an event that's a few months later would be meaningfully better than if it were a few months before.
Do you think when he said a few other things, he was referring to showing new models or showing other technology that's not part of CyberCab?
It could be either. I think we were talking about this with Larry earlier. We are getting closer and closer to when those interim vehicles are supposed to be released. So, so if Elon talked about potentially production by the end of the year or the first part of next year, that means that those designs are done and this suppliers are ramping. But I could get wonky for a second. The suppliers that are related to how the vehicle looks will ramp the latest. The suppliers that are related to the internals of the vehicle, meaning like the 48 volts, if they're going to go 48 volt, if they're going to, if it's the electric motors, even electric motors can go pretty late. But like battery and module suppliers will come sooner. And I think those battery, I think I think what they're doing with these interim vehicles is they're taking the battery and module dates that were going to be designated for the 25K unboxed model, and they're pulling the modules forward, and they're going to be putting those modules in a linear fashion in the existing tooled 3Y type serial type line. So I think that's what they're doing, and I think it's, like I said, this is the best of both worlds. If you're Tesla investor, that means they're going to get longer tooling life on the 3Y. They're going to have lower. They're going to be able to extend the capital out on that, and then they're going to pre-ramp the 25K model modules sooner, and therefore those things will be de-risked. They'll be up a ramp curve sooner, and they'll be down the cost curve sooner. So the 25K vehicle will actually be 25K sooner if they're doing what I think they're going to do.
Yeah, we had this debate a little bit earlier. I'm not one that thinks that these, allows us to show off a couple more things means the big vehicles, the other vehicles necessarily. It just seems, I don't know, it just seems a little bit of a stretch. We'll see.
I said maybe. I said it definitely, it could be more features and functionality for the Cybercab, or it could be, depending if they have the event in November. I think they have to start showing those other vehicles, because I think they're going to be at the price point where the 3 and Y are with the IRA. And so this is Tesla's game plan. I think Tesla has been game theorying out the political landscape, but in general, it falls in line with what they do with product, which is generationally they want to build cheaper products. So I think these interim vehicles are going to be $5,000 to $6,000 less in COGS. Maybe closer to $4,000 to $5,000 less in COGS, and that's going to allow them to, take it down into the IRA range and just be ready. If the IRA is gone, Tesla's like, fine, it's going to be pretty transparent to our consumers. If they want a better vehicle, they want a performance 3 or Y, they'll be up here in the 40 plus K range. If they want something that's kind of a little bit more, basic, but it has autonomy, has all this other stuff, we'll have something closer to the low 30s.
Okay. So, hey, Warren, you missed it at the beginning, but since we have you here, I was asking the question, are people more bullish now, given all the things that has happened just in the last week? Now, I know that what happened to you was you got a little bearish a little bit because you're worried about a potential risk with the annual shareholder meeting. When that turned out to be positive, you bought back in again. At this point, and I think most of us are aware that you are very long term. You don't care about the movement of the stock, quarterly, even yearly. But are you more bullish given the activities of events that have happened in the last week? And I went through a bunch of them earlier, but what's your position there?
I don't think I've seen anything that made me more bullish long term. I mean, I think we will have Robotaxi eventually, whether it's the end of this. I don't think it's at this point. I don't think we're going to see a Robotaxi operating by the end of this year, but I think we'll see one operating by the end of next year. And if it's the year after that, it does. If you're looking at 2030, it doesn't really matter when Robotaxi happens, as long as it happens before 2030. And then once you have Robotaxi operating, the economics of the business model are just killer. And then the same thing with Optimus. I don't know when we're going to see Optimus in reality, but I think we are going to see Optimus in reality, and it's just the value that those two things create for the company are amazing. I think the one thing that was, I would say, bullish medium term was the increase in energy storage deployed in the quarterly vehicle delivery report. They actually said how many gigawatt hours of energy storage was deployed, and it was more than double any previous quarter. And my gut hunch is we're going to see a pullback the next quarter, that it will grow over time, and that won't be the high note. It will probably more than double from that in the not too distant future, but that doesn't mean the next quarter will be higher than that quarter. It could be lower than that quarter, but just the impact going forward, and I think you said Larry was in here, the value that creates for Tesla in the short to medium term is pretty big. But I don't think it ranks significantly compared to what Robotaxi and Optimus do for the valuation. And when you're looking at 2030, those are the ones that drive me.
Okay, and then what's your perspective on what's happening with 12.4 and 12.5? Him saying that they're actually testing 12.5 now. Engineers are doing that in near Chuck Cook's area. What's your thoughts on
Yeah, I
the
saw that. Well,
progress?
I don't really get as caught up in point releases as others. I did just share, somebody posted, it was my friend, and I have a friend in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. It's like a Chinese Malaysian, and he owns a Model 3, a new Model 3. I think he got one of the first new Model 3s and drove us around in it. He was he shared some graph that somebody had access to, like, the miles per intervention or something like that, and it was like really going up. I don't know where they got the information. I didn't process it as much as I should have, but it seems like they really. We have all these videos that Omar drives his car or Chuck drives his car, and different people say, oh, here's how FSD version 12 point 94.73 whatever, this is how it compares to the previous and thing. And the thing that matters isn't how one individual experiences that point release. What matters is there's hundreds of thousands of vehicles that are driving the software, and in the home office or the supercomputer cluster, the AI team is seeing data on a massive scale. And the real thing that we don't see is how much improvement are they seeing. And my gut hunch is they're seeing a lot of improvement, but it's hard for us to put in perspective how big of a deal is this point release, is that point release. But Landon, I'm assuming you're driving 12.3 dot something or 12.4 dot something, and you probably have a gut feel for this is better in that way and it's worse in that way. But you can't have the perspective of how is this working out over hundreds of thousands of cars. Do you have any thoughts? I just want to target Landon in particular. Landon, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. Jeff was mentioning earlier that it's hard to keep up unless there's a major revision. I feel like that this major revision is no steering nag. And so it really goes to Elon's point that these are not, to use the word again, point changes in the software. These are major levels, and we should really be paying attention. But other than that, no, some of the older versions, you get it and you forget, oh, yeah, I did get a new version today.
Go ahead, Xander.
Oh, thanks, Herbert. Yeah, I found it very interesting that Gary Black is, not someone I listen to, but I kind of just look at the weather vane there and sentiment. And, he's been posting about, the storyline for Tesla. And, so that kind of signals to me that there's still bullishness. And obviously, some analysts are coming out and they're bullish and upgrading. So for some of the shorter term stuff, I've I'm wondering if, like, you asked the question earlier, but I'm wondering if others kind of feel the same. And we're going to wrap here in like 5 minutes or so. So if you do respond, keep it brief. But I'm wondering if, like, the Fed market pricing in a Fed correction to the rates finally in September is swaying any FOMO that you have, and if you're like looking at any of the rotation, like into IWM, which is a Russell small caps thing. I made my first trade today in that ticker. So just wondering if just sentiment on the shorter term. I know we like to talk long term, but I do like the short term a little bit.
Does anybody want to jump in?
Well, I mean, I do think that it looks like interest rates are coming down, and that's a big deal for Tesla in the short to medium term. So that's a positive. And I think that's one of the reasons that the stock has been going up. And I think, if you want to look at short term, we were talking before about the story from Bloomberg. The stock had been on an 11-day positive run. And to my knowledge, nobody who was excited about the 11-day positive run was attributing it to, there's this event on August 8th where they're going to talk about some new prototype vehicle. We were talking about energy storage deployed. We were talking about interest rates coming down. We were talking about some other good news. I think vehicle deliveries had beat or something like that. I don't follow that stuff that closely. And then the story comes out that event is delayed 2 months, and these events usually, when Elon announced the August 8th event, the stock was down the week following. When Tesla has an event, the stock often falls after the event. So why would the stock fall so much on news of something being delayed that's not material to the stock and hasn't driven the stock up? And it's just, I think it was, the stock had gone up for 11 days and people were looking for a reason to sell. And if I'm correct, and again, I'm not a short-term guy, the market on the whole was down that day, and Tesla being like a 2 alpha stock or something like this is like not my normal language. If Tesla's a 2 alpha stock, if the market's down 1, then Tesla's going to be down 2. So, people are like, well, why did Tesla go down more than the market? Because Tesla's a 2 alpha stock. It's a more volatile stock than the rest of the market. If the market goes down, Tesla goes down more. That's normal for a high volatility stock. Am I close to answering your question, Xander?
I just find it funny. I don't follow this, but I'm going to use the exact correct terminology of beta. And good job, Warren.
I mean, that is interesting what you said there, Warren, about why did the Bloomberg article make the stock fall and what's going up now? Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas normally has lunches with a number of other institutional analysts, and he was struck and he said that this is the first time that after 90 minutes of conversation, the discussion did not even discuss cars, auto deliveries. It was about everything else. So I asked this question earlier, but it sure feels like the institutional analysts are starting to buy into energy for sure. But even this Robotaxi, they're now talking about it. They're now, thinking. I don't think that they've changed their stock price targets. I don't think that they've modeled it in, but they have to have that conversation to start to think about it. Do you agree with that?
I don't. That's I think that's a Xander question rather than a Warren question. I don't know how analysts analyze. I always find it funny that they say they can't model it. Well, I modeled it. Stephen Mark Ryan modeled it. James Stevenson modeled it. ARK Invest modeled it. Are you guys saying you're fucking morons and you can't model something in the future? What does it mean we can't model that?
Yeah, no, it's just a one-day event for the stock, but I mean, I think the stock reacted. It's headline algo type stuff. I mean, the market was down. I think the Nasdaq was down 2%, but Tesla was down, I think 9% or so. Maybe if you include after hours, 10%. So that's a 5x. It's kind of a bigger move. So I think it was more of just headline algo related. When that happened, but I don't think people then critically think like, well, okay, what does this actually like? What does this mean? Like, there's no revenue plan from the company on robotaxis, like where anything would have been imminent. Even the quote unquote, I shared a couple of tweets on this. The analysts on TV, they're like, "There's no robotaxi this year." I'm like, well, Tesla never said they're shipping a robotaxi this year. So I think everybody's kind of gets it wrong. I think in kind of the fog of war, they see an major event, delayed, and then they just react. And Tesla is a highly volatile stock, but it was an outsized move for sure. But it's made up a good portion of that since then. So to me, it's again, we're going to look back a couple months from now. We're like, well, what was that? It's not going to.
As long as we can agree that the run up for 11 days, Elon didn't do anything right, and that's not why it went up. But when it fell, it was Elon's fault. As long as we can all agree that's how it works.
That's how it works. We all agree.
Yeah, there were no tweets about that.
We know that's how.
Yeah, there were no tweets about Elon doing anything wrong during those 11 days.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining, Warren, Landon, Jeff, and Sat, and Sander, and Larry, and all the others earlier. Appreciate everybody here. Please follow Cyberpulse and then keep joining us. We appreciate this. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.